All right, welcome to this second exercise on Power Automate in a day. What we're going to do is we'll create a flow link to a SharePoint site. We'll create more expression and we will focus on approval. This is what you will achieve in this exercise. You will first create a SharePoint site, Power Automate in a day, with a SharePoint list, travel expense, with the following column, amount, status, and title. When you create an expense in this SharePoint list, then a workflow that you will create will start and will ask someone to approve the expense. The approver will have to approve or reject the expense, and you will see the status in the SharePoint list. Okay? As you can see here, while the system waits for someone to approve, the status is pending. So an approval request will be sent by email. You will also check this approval request in mobile. So this is the email right now. Okay, so the user, the approver, can directly approve or reject in the mailbox. When it's approved or rejected, then the system will send an email to the person who submitted the expense. So let's do it. Let's go to Team to create a SharePoint site. So to the browser, team.microsoft.com. Let's create a site or a team, and there will be a site associated with the team. The team name, in my case, is Power Automate in a day. Let's create a first channel because this is mandatory. Okay. We can skip this. And now let's go to the associated SharePoint site. Click on Files. It might take some time before you see the SharePoint site. Okay, this is the list here. So now let's click on site content, and here let's create a new list for our expenses. Create a list from blank. Let's call it expense or expenses or expense approval. Create. And let's add 2 additional columns. By default, you get a title column. So let's create a new SharePoint list. Travel expenses, create. With 2 additional columns. The first one should be a currency, which internally is a number. Let's name it amount. Okay, we can keep the default currency, or we can switch to another one, whatever. Save. Let's create the last column, which is status, which should be a text, and in status we'll get approved, rejected, or pending. So let's name it status. Save. And our SharePoint list is ready. Okay, now we can move to Power Automate to create a cloud flow. So let's go to Power Automate, so make.powerautomate.com. Make sure that you are in the default environment. You can do that in another environment if you have another one. Let's create an automated cloud flow, because that's a flow that will start automatically when an item is created in the list. Let's name the flow expense approval. Let's search the SharePoint trigger. You see, this is the one we're gonna use, but if you type SharePoint here, it will filter the SharePoint triggers. So let's select the when an item is created, this one. And we get into the designer. This is the trigger, and we need to specify the SharePoint site URL, which is this one here. Okay. It might be that the SharePoint URL is already in the cache, but normally it's a bit too early for that. No, it's not this one, it's another one. So if we don't find it, yeah, it's automate in a day, then we need to select custom down below here, custom. And we can type our SharePoint site URL. And then when you click list name, we will find our travel expense automatically. Okay, find. Now we need to add an action in the flow. And let's use the approval connector. In the approval connector, let's use the start and wait for an approval. Okay, this is the action that will send an approval to a list of approver. Let's select the approval type here, which is first to respond. There are other patterns that we will explore later on. And the title of the message that will be sent to the approver will be, please approve the following expense or travel or whatever. The following expense. And next to that, we will grab the title from the trigger by using the dynamic properties. And of course, we need to assign the approval to someone. So let's approve that to ourselves. We can put additional details about the approver, about the expense, like the travel destination will point to the title, the amount will point to the amount, has been submitted by, and we will try to retrieve the display name of the submitter. So here we can grab the when an item is created. Make sure that you grab the correct trigger, amount from the trigger has been submitted by. This information we can also retrieve from the trigger. If we don't find that directly, we need to click on see more to see more properties. And we can, create by, let's select create by display name. Okay, cool. All right. We can provide a link to the item, a link that will point to the SharePoint list. Again, we have to use the trigger, and in the trigger, let's select the property link to item. Okay, now we can save this flow. And we can check if it has been approved or not. So let's use the control connector. In the control connector, we can use the condition action, and the condition will give us a branch, true, false. So we can check if the outcome of the approval is approve. So we're going to use a condition here. Condition can be more complex. So here let's fill in the condition. We're going to check by using the dynamic value the outcome property of the approval, and the outcome should be approve or reject. Not approved, but approve, right? That is important. Internally, it's approve. I can show that later on, but it's approve. So not ed, but e. Check if it's equal to approve. If yes, then we'll go to the left branch, so the true branch. So what we're going to do there is we will change the status value of the expense, right? So to do this, we will update the SharePoint list by using the SharePoint connector. In the SharePoint connector, we have the update action, update item, that we need to link to the SharePoint site URL, which is this. Okay. So let's again put it in the custom value. Let's grab our SharePoint list here, travel expense, and what we're going to do, let's click on advanced parameters, show all. We're going to update the status column with approved, right? Okay, we can save this and we can test to make sure that this works. Yeah, there is something missing here. Of course, when we update the item, we have to specify what is the ID of the row that we need to update. Okay, we can grab the ID from the trigger, save. The flow is being saved. It is a good practice to rename the action. So my practice is to keep the default name and to update some additional detail, like this. This is my naming convention. And we can copy and paste. You see, we can copy and paste the same action for the rejected part. Paste an action here, and we can paste. Let's change the name to rejected. And of course, we need to change the status in the list like this, rejected. Okay. Let's save the flow. And now we can send an email to the submitter by using the Outlook connector, Office 365 Outlook connector. Send an email v2 action, and we will send an email to the person who did create the entry in the list, and the submitter. So we need to find the submitter. So the subject will be your expense has been approved. Okay, so let's grab the title property from the trigger. Click Dynamic Properties. Don't select the Update Item action, but select the one which is down below, which is the trigger when an item is created. Yeah, so grab the title from the when an item it has been approved by, and then we'll have to find the approver display name. So to send the email, the two, we can switch to advanced mode here, which will allow us to use a dynamic value. And from there, we will grab the person who did create the item from the trigger. So when an item is created, this is a trigger, click see more, and you will find the created by email. So that's the email of the person who did create the entry in the SharePoint list. Right? Now we'll have to find the approver. Let's save the flow and let's add a new item in the SharePoint list to check if this works. Travel to Lanzarote, amount 2000, save, and this should trigger the flow. Make sure that you save the flow before, of course. I think I did before, but normally the first time you use the prover in an environment, it might take between 10 and 15 minutes before the whole approval bundling is in place. Some system table should be created by the system. So it might take between 10 and 15 minutes. But so we can see that the flow has been started. We can see the trace, and the flow is currently waiting in the start and wait for an approval. Okay, so it's waiting for that. And it can wait about 30 days. After 30 days, the approval stop running. There are workarounds to make that longer, but and we'll see that in the exercise, of course. Okay, now normally, as you can see, normally in my Outlook, I should have received a notification, an approval notification here. Yes. And I can approve or reject my my expense. I can put a comment, and of course the flow can grab the comment dynamically. Right? Let's click that, and if we take a look at the flow trace, we will see that the flow moved to the next step, which is here, and the status has been updated, an email has been sent to the creator, and yes. So we still need to fill in the approver. Okay, so what we want is to retrieve the approver. If we take a look at the trace of the approval action, we see that the response is internally in a JSON structure, JSON object, which is response bracket, which is an array, and for each responder there is one entry. So what we need is to retrieve the first response, and when we'll have the first, let's copy and paste this in Notepad. You see, we see responder response brackets. It's an array of response. We might potentially have an array 7 response, and for each response we have a responder, and in responder we have the display name and we have the email. So we can create an expression that retrieves this email or the display name. Okay, so let's compare this to our expression. So let's make sure that you have copied this from the approval trace to Notepad or whatever, another text editor. Many people don't use Windows. Okay. Right, so we need to grab the body of this action, start and wait for an approval. So let's edit our flow. And after the start and wait for an approval, we will add a compose action, which is an action where we can store almost whatever we want, like JSON information. Compose. We use compose all the time. Let's use compose from the data operation. Let's name it approver. And in input, we will create our expression. We won't grab the dynamic value. We will just, if we grab the body from dynamic property, there's not much we can do here. You see, if we select body here, fine. We cannot do a lot here, right? So what we need, if we want to be more specific in the body, is to use a fx to create an expression, custom expression. So in the expression, we can leverage dynamic content. We can say, hey, give me the body, and I will manipulate the body. Okay, and this is quite easy here. I've clicked on body. I got this. So it will return the JSON behind the body, the JSON of this. You see, there is an underscore in the space in the name of the action. So each space corresponds to an underscore internally. So what we want is to retrieve the first element of response. So we have the body, we have all the response. So we can say, no, please return the response. You see, so it's bracket like this. It's not, it's single quote response. So this return all the responses. And what we want is to retrieve the first one, 0. Okay, let's get back to the JSON. We want to retrieve the first responder, the first response. Okay, so we need to put bracket 0. And don't put bracket, always put a question mark before the bracket, meaning if there's no 0, then the system won't crash. Okay, always put question mark before bracket. And I want to get the responder, and in the responder, I want to get the email, user principal name or email. Let's grab the email. Like this, bracket, so question mark, bracket, email. Okay, let's add the expression. Oh, yes, oh, I've forgotten. I need to put a single quote in email, right? Email must be surrounded with a single quote. Okay, so add, this is my expression. It will return the email. Let's click add. Okay, it should work. Can save my flow. I can go to the condition, and in the send an email, I can say it has been approved by, I would just grab the compose in a dynamic value. Output. It's output. Easy. Right? I can also grab the display name. Perhaps the display name is better. I don't know. So let's change the compose expression. So instead of the email, I'm going to put display name. It is case sensitive. I think it's N uppercase. Display name. Yeah, N uppercase. So it's case sensitive. Cool. Okay, it should be fine. Update. Don't forget to click update. Save your flow. And now you can test the previous run And instead of testing that, actually this expression can be created by Copilot. If you, let's try this by adding a new compose. Okay, this is my new compose, just for testing. I will remove it afterwards, but go there and click expression, and you can ask Copilot to generate the expression. So you can say, hey, Copilot, display name of the approver. And Copilot will create the expression for you. Not this one. So you can go through a set of proposal. This is the good one. It's a different syntax than the one we did create, and I will explain that later, but this one works, right? So it's good as long as you know the syntax a little bit. Okay, anyway, so let's remove the thing from Copilot, but I recommend you to try Copilot. It will get better and better in the coming weeks. Now in the send an email, I can put the approver display name. Save. Let's copy this action. Paste. Let's rename the action. Like this. It has been rejected by okay. Okay, now let's improve this a little bit, because what we want, what we need is we need to see pending while an approval is going on for an expense. So we can copy an existing status from here and right click, paste that here. And we can say the status will be pending. Pending, right? And we can also improve this by changing the business logic a little bit, which is that if the expense amount is small, like less than 500 euros or $500 or whatever, it's going to be automatically approved. Otherwise, if it's expensive, so more expensive than that, then it will have to go through the approval process, right? So here we can put a condition, an action from the control connector, more specifically condition, and we're going to say this. So if, make sure that you grab the when an item is created and not the update item. If the amount is greater than, let's R code that 500, right? Then we'll go to the left branch. And let's call this condition if expensive. Okay, so in this case, we need to move this existing action over there. like this. Let's use the zoom here, right? And here, if it's not expensive, then it's going to be automatically approved. So I can copy an approval action from here and put that here. Paste. It's approved. And if I remove this, as you can see, you can only have one action with a name, so you can have a duplicate of action with the same name. So what I usually do is I put underscore here, and usually we don't see the underscore there. You can see here that there is underscore, but not in the flow itself, so which is a good practice, I think. All right. Okay, so that's a new version of the flow. Okay, so I recommend you to test this flow. Another topic that we need to discuss is the concept of approval center. So when the flow sends an approval request, the approval is sent by email. Okay, so we get, and if the user is a mobile, so if the user has installed the Power Automate mobile application on their mobile, then the user will get a notification automatically for free. Right? It's not an SMS. It's just a normal Power Automate notification on their phone, which is very nice, and it's free. Now, we can centralize all the approval in one place that we call the approval center. So in each environment, we have an approval center where we can see all the approval sent by your current account or received by your current account as well. So these are the approval that your current account, so this account, receive or is receiving. So that's the pending, actually the pending approvals. These are all the approval that have been sent by, well, these are all the approval currently sent by your account and waiting for an approval to take place. And the history show all the approval that has been sent to your account and the outcome, right? So rejected, approved, etc. The problem with this approval center is there is one approval center in each environment. And some application in the enterprise might be in different environment. So the user will have to switch to the corresponding environment to be able to approve. That's why many users still use email to approve or reject or manage their approval, right? So if I test this, so let's say I'm gonna restart my approval. Okay, let's resubmit the flow from here. I just hope that the approval is not automatically sent. I need to check what was the amount of the one I did. The amount, oh yes, it was automatically approved, this one. Okay, it has been approved automatically, yeah, okay. So let's say I'm gonna create a new one. Travel to Iceland, and amount is this, so it will have to be approved. So we have to wait a little bit for the flow to trigger. Let's refresh. yeah, 2 seconds ago. So normally this is this one, Iceland, correct, is pending. So an approval has been sent by email, correct. But if I check the approval center, I should get an approval soon. Yes, Iceland here, you see. And if I check the sent, my account has sent, and this is pending, an approval to the Iceland approval, right? All right. And the cool thing is that I can see this approval on my phone. So if I use my phone link and I use my Automate. Yes, let's. Okay. So normally here, I should see approval here, which is indeed the travel to Iceland, right? I'm in this environment, which is fine. So here I can see my approval details and I can approve and reject here. And voila. So if I get there, Iceland, let's refresh this, has been approved. I had received an approval request for Iceland, which has been completed. And so if I get to the email, I see completed. So that is very nice. And if I go to the approval center, normally this should disappear indeed, right? So the Iceland disappear. I don't have anything, I don't have the Iceland anymore here because it has been approved. And normally I should see this in my history, right? Approved. So I did approve this one. So it's really cool. Okay, so I hope that you enjoyed this exercise. Now you are ready to move to exercise 3, the next lab.